Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Mohibullah Wazir, and the topic is the inferior mediastinum. Look, the mediastinum is divided by an imaginary plane from the manubrio-sternal junction passing posteriorly to the lower border of the fourth thoracic vertebrae. In this way, the posterior boundary of superior mediastinum is formed by the upper fourth thoracic vertebrae, while the posterior boundary of the inferior mediastinum is formed by the lower 12th thoracic vertebrae. And in this way, the inferior mediastinum bounded superiorly by this imaginary plane, inferiorly by the diaphragm, and anteriorly by the body of the sternum, while posteriorly by these 12 by the lower 8 thoracic vertebrae. Now this inferior mediastinum is then divided by the heart and pericardium into this anterior part and posterior part, and this intermediate part which is by itself occupied by the pericardium and heart. And this upper part is called as anterior mediastinum, and this is called as posterior mediastinum, while this is called as the middle mediastinum. These are the three parts of the inferior mediastinum. We discuss each one separately. Okay, now the anterior mediastinum, look, this is manubrio-sternal junction and this is body of the sternum. So the anterior boundary of this anterior mediastinum is the body of the sternum, and the posterior boundary is the pericardium, and the posterior boundary is the pericardium enclosing the heart, and the inferior boundary is the diaphragm, and the superior boundary is the imaginary plane which I have discussed already, while on each side it is bounded again by this mediastinal pleura. The contents of the anterior mediastinum are: number one, over here the lowermost part of the thymus which lies anterior over here to the pericardium, and then over here from the pericardium to the sternum, extending two ligaments, one superiorly that connects the deep surface of the body of the sternum to the pericardium, one over here and one over here, sternopericardial ligaments, and some lymph nodes and some fatty tissues. And in addition to that, the arteries descending from the internal thoracic artery toward the pericardium, the branches of internal thoracic artery also. These are the contents of the anterior mediastinum. And then the middle mediastinum is the part that is the pericardium that contains the heart in itself. And upper boundary is again the imaginary plane, the lower boundary is the diaphragm, and on each side it is the mediastinal pleura, and posteriorly it is bounded by the posterior mediastinum. This posterior mediastinum is the posterior boundary. Now it contains the contents of the middle mediastinum. Number one, you can see over here, this is the heart and enclosed in its pericardium, and then the heart enclosed in its pericardium and overlaid by these margins of the lungs, and then the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava, the ascending thoracic aorta, the pulmonary trunk, the big vessels, and then over here the heart is enclosed by the pericardium, and on the surface of pericardium present over there is the phrenic nerve, the pericardiaco-phrenic artery, and pericardiaco-phrenic vein. These three structures lies on the surface of pericardium, rather it is embedded in the pericardium, that is the phrenic nerve, pericardiaco-phrenic artery, and pericardiaco-phrenic vein. and maybe and also the branches of the transthoracic artery that comes to lie over here to supply the pericardium. These are the contents of the middle mediastinum. And then the inferior mediastinum, the third part of inferior mediastinum is this posterior mediastinum, make it close, which is bounded above by this imaginary plane, below by the diaphragm, posteriorly by the lower 8 thoracic vertebrae, and anteriorly by the pericardium. And this part of the inferior mediastinum is called as posterior mediastinum, and it contains, look over here please, it contains the esophagus, and then the descending thoracic aorta, and then the bronchi, and then the azygos vein on the right side, hemiazygos vein on the left side, and then the branches of the thoracic aorta, and then the lymphatic duct, all the thoracic duct, which are the lymphatic duct, and then also over here the lymph nodes. These are all the contents of the posterior mediastinum, which is a part of the inferior mediastinum. Okay, then it also contains, because it contains esophagus, so over here is esophageal plexus of nerves, and then there is also the two vagi, right and left vagus nerve, and then also present over here deep to there, over here is the sympathetic chain. These all are the contents of the posterior mediastinum. Thank you.